Hey, welcome to another episode of In the Chute. I'm Brandon Carpenter, and with me is my esteemed colleague and let's see, me, the oldest one I sired, my oldest hero.
That we
I'm a,
know
I'm a
of.
sire of heroes. I sire heroes. That's right. Kalen, and Kalen, what do you got for us today in the chute?
uh, what is a using horse? We have used this term um, a lot when describing the horses we produce. We've used it a lot when we've been talking about horses with Hashknife hangouts and stuff like that. And then of course, just it comes up in conversation. I've heard it not only in the West, I've also heard it in the East. Less so in the East, but I have heard it over here. And so, what is the term a using or a using horse?
Using horse is basically a horse that has a utility type purpose. Let's put it that way. That's probably the best way to say it.
Like a
I mean,
living tool.
And I've ridden with guys that for whatever reason needed to rope something, and they go, "Oh, I can't rope that animal because I don't have my rope horse. This isn't my rope horse." I'm like,
Okay.
"Okay, so
I
you
think
know,
that do you think that comes from more of like a rodeo attitude?
yeah,
Like
this guy was
this is
like a
my
team roper type,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he probably could have used that horse, or maybe the horse didn't have a lot of experience.
Hmm.
That's a possibility, but to me, I found it hard to believe that a guy that liked to rope as much as he did, that most all these horses couldn't at least do the basics,
Yeah.
right? So, but a using horse is one that we can throw a saddle on, go for a ride. We can go up the mountains, take a pleasure ride. We can take that same horse, work some cattle, work them appropriately too,
Hmm.
not just
Run them all
dog
over the
along behind
place.
them. Actually,
Yeah.
use that horse to use the horse uh, to move cattle, mother up cattle, hold cattle, sort cattle. Uh, you can then take that saddle off, throw on a pack saddle, and they can pull a pack and appropriately step around trees on a trail and miss those packs. Um, you can use them to do basically whatever you want. If you want to put them in front of a buggy or a sleigh, you can do that, and they can be utilized. And again, it's a kind of utilitarian term that they can do whatever you ask them to do within reason. I mean, we're not going to necessarily have a single horse, put them into a harness and pull a three bottom plow or single
Hmm.
bottom plow. We're not going to do that. They're just not fit for it. And a draft horse wouldn't be fit to do that either. So being able to do whatever you need that horse to do in the terms of what kind of work you do. So there are some people that well, this is my riding horse. I can't pack him. Oh, okay.
And even some of our horses are like that, but the normally the overall product, we always try to make sure that they have at least been familiarized to an extent so that if the thing were to occur where, hey, I need to just it's an emergency pack. I gotta take something out. Like, oh, I killed an elk. Oops. I need to pack the elk out. Well, I guess I'm
Right.
gonna switch my saddle to an ad hoc pack saddle, and I'm gonna pull out the hind quarters or something like that.
Well, and if you recall, when Braden was able to get that moose permit and shot a moose, and we had a pack saddle on or pack horse, and then you and I used our riding saddles as a pack saddle,
Which I
and
actually had a draft horse to use on that one, thankfully.
yeah, a light draft. He's a Frisian, he
Yep.
was a light draft, but yeah, no, that's right.
He
And
didn't
so
lead worth anything though, so we had to dally him to the Braden's horse and make Braden drag him. But yeah,
well,
other
you
than
were
that, he was
training him, and
perfect.
yeah, and you were training him, and he was learning, and
Oh
yeah, he
gosh,
just was not
that was a frustrating moment.
very immature horse, very very immature
Uh,
mind on that horse.
yeah, but he figured it out, and that was the good thing. But
Yeah.
like I think another thing to differentiate a using horse from other ones is in my neck of the woods right now, like a racehorse, they are bred and trained specifically to run. And then, we kind of talked about rodeo, but specifically rodeo, looking at like saddle bronc and bareback broncs, they're literally bred to buck. Like they're not bred to do anything else or trained to do anything else. They are there to buck as hard and high as possible to get points. And
Yeah, no,
that's
that's
the
right. They're they're a sport type. Uh, a utility for that sport.
Right.
They're not designed, or their brain is not developed as far as the breeding and crossbreeding and inter or not interbreeding, but breeding program. They don't want them to be nice and calm. They want a decent horse that's going to buck like hell. I mean, that's their purpose, but they're certainly not a using horse. You're not going to be, using them at a branding.
Right. And then
Although those kinds of activities can happen at brandings.
yes, they can.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, no, it's you're right. And race horses typically, they go really good in a counterclockwise motion. They
yes.
that's what they do. They keep turning to the left.
Yep.
So
Well, and another question
and
is, can you take any of those horses and make them into a using horse? I
you got
think
a
to
lot
an
easier
extent you probably
time.
can, but
It depends on it. You're going to have a tougher time probably with the rodeo stock,
mm-hmm.
like a saddle bronc or a bareback, because that's what they're designed to do, and that's what they've been rewarded to do. And by the reward is, when that buzzer goes off, some of them quit kind of bucking, they straighten out,
They
or
figure it out. Yeah.
they figured out that they're just supposed to do that. Or when the guy's off, then they'll still buck some of them will, but um, that's their pressure release, is getting the guy off their back, and so they're going to do that until they can get the guy off their back. um, Race horses, they're riding them, but they're not riding them with great finesse of control.
Mm-mm.
It's about, they're got their their reins are in each hand, and they're letting them go, or they're holding them up, and they're bred to run. That's what they want to do. And I've seen a number of horses come off the track, even quarter horse, racers, that um, somebody's tried to use, and to me it's rehabilitate, because you're trying to teach them something that they spent their whole early life doing, is just run, and
Yeah.
they'll do that. So it's really difficult. Yeah, there's some that can be done, and done successfully, especially the race horses. I've seen that happen a number of times. But boy, as far as the saddle bronc and stuff, yeah, that's a tough one. I don't even know why you would do that, um, unless you
Yeah.
got
And
a
I was
lot
just
of other
thinking,
horses that you want to pass up that are a lot better.
yeah, and I just was thinking because somebody could come out with the thought that, well, you can do it with wild mustangs, couldn't you just do it with anything else? Because I mean, you've trained mustangs before that were
Yeah.
they were captured and then they were sold, and somebody was like, hey, I got a mustang, can you train it? Because it's like, and the hardest part I think with that, other than them being essentially a wild animal from birth, is probably, you get over that too, and that you can get over. But the thing that is probably the biggest challenge with like a Mustang that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is age, because we've talked about is the older they get, just like humans, it's kind of sometimes it tends to be harder to teach because they kind of get set in their ways, or they get,
Mhm.
it just repetition mentally, and so trying to get over some of those big bumps in the road tends to be the biggest challenge with them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And uh, you could take a horse, doesn't even have to be a Mustang. Take a horse that's in a larger herd that somebody has, and if the horse has
Mhm.
never been handled,
Yeah.
they're going to act just like a Mustang. It doesn't.
Right.
That's really irrelevant at that point. It's just about whether or not they've been acclimated to humans, or had any kind of imprinting at all, other than what their mother and the herd did. Um, I guess that one of the things that is kind of misleading in a way, and you touched on it, is age. There's a significant difference in the ability or the difficulty in training a 3-year-old to a 4-year-old, or a 3-year-old to a 6, 7-year-old. I trained
Mhm.
a 7-year-old stallion that had been abused. And that was, I think you probably remember that one of those guys,
A
and that
little bit,
was
yeah.
he was difficult. He was hard, and he was so he'd been abused so much that he was aggressive. He would come after you, and in just as an aggressive defensive type behavior. And I mean, he teeth bared, pawing at the air, coming at you, and he just had to work with it. Step off to the side and then drive him away, and then give him pressure release and reassurance. And you know what? He and I got along great. I think I when I was done with him, I could sit on him bareback, backwards, with nothing on him, and when he went back to the owner. And I actually think I get that on the business card.
I think you do. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen that. But
Yeah. But it took a while, and I wouldn't say that just anybody could get on him and do that. You had to be firm with him and let him know that, because he'd always continually try you constantly that, hey, I want to do this. Like, nope, you're doing what I want. And you just keep him in check. And he was a good horse that way. But I think that baggage he packed from not just being
trauma.
handled, but it was trauma, exactly what it
Hmm.
was. Yeah, I mean, talk about post-traumatic stress. I mean, he's packing around with him all the time. So
Yeah.
uh, everybody comes with their own little baggage, animals included. So I think that's uh, a using horse. If you can get that animal to do whatever you want, anytime you want, that's the whole thing. You don't have to have 5 horses to do 5 different jobs. You can do 5 different jobs with a horse.
Yeah.
That's the
And
point.
and then just recycle the horses, which is better because then they can get rest. Use one day,
Oh
then
yeah.
one the next, and whatnot. But
Yeah, when I go in the backcountry in the mountains, a lot of times if there was a pair of us where you didn't leave a horse alone, I'd take a horse and a pack horse, and then leave, uh, everybody leave one horse in camp, and then you'd ride your horse, ride that one, and put on some long days, a lot of miles, hard miles, long days. Come back, and then you'd swap the horses. The one that rested got to go the next day, and you give the chance to rest the one that you were riding the previous day. So you can do a lot that way. And but that was more of having 2 horses to do a lot of. They were doing the same type of work. It wasn't any different. I wasn't using one strictly for one thing and one for another. And a lot of times I'd pack one into a place I was going and ride one, and then on the way out I'd swap them. I'd ride the one that I'd packed in and pack the one that I'd rode in. Just to give them more work, break it up, get more skill, so they don't have perishable skills. But
yeah, there you
we talked about earlier with us having perishable skills in another episode. But when you do that, you're just maximizing the amount of work you can do and minimizing the workload on the animal itself. So they're still a using horse.
go. Yep. All right. With that, I think we'll put it out to pasture.